Hello everybody and welcome to another snack review. Today we're taking a look at WD-40 Specialist Electrical Contact Cleaner. Now let's get into the review. What? What do you want?
Oh, it's a VHS tape.
Well, I don't have anything better to do, so I guess I'll check it out. I feel like it's pretty clear to see that the way we consume media has changed drastically since the early 90s. With the advent of the internet, it's much easier to find the content you want to view, as well as talk with people who enjoy the same content as you. In the same vein, topics that were too niche to be covered heavily on mainstream media gained massive followings on the internet. A great example of this is the devoted Disney theme parks community. The Disney theme parks have been loved by many ever since Disneyland opened in 1955. However, back before the internet was as commonplace as it is now, if you wanted to know what was going on in the Disney parks, you pretty much had to go and visit them. Nowadays, you can hop on the internet and find countless news sites dedicated to delivering updates on the happenings within the Disney parks, as well as hundreds of hours of videos, whether it be in-park vlogs, ride-throughs, or history videos. It's all right there at your fingertips. While our situation is much better than that of pre-internet Disney park fans, their situation would get at least a little bit more tolerable with the advent of home video. In 1991, the Walt Disney World Resort was preparing for its 20th anniversary. Ahead of this occasion, they decided to release VHS tapes commemorating both the Magic Kingdom and Epcot Center, entitled A Day at the Magic Kingdom and A Day at Epcot Center. In 1995, they would also release a tape commemorating MGM Studios, titled A Day at the Disney Studios. These tapes would showcase the attractions and features available at the parks, and be sold as souvenirs to remind guests of their trip to the parks and entice them to return. In that way, these tapes can be considered predecessors to today's Disney park vlogs. Also, due to the ever-changing nature of the Disney parks, these tapes also serve as a time capsule of the Walt Disney World parks in the early 90s. That, as well as the strange decisions made during the production of these tapes, has led me to making this video, where I'll be taking a look at A Day at the Magic Kingdom, A Day at Epcot Center, and A Day at the Disney Studios.
Here's 20 new reasons to visit Disney World this year!
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20!
It's Disney's 20th birthday all year long.
We're starting our trip back to the 90s with A Day at the Magic Kingdom. For clarity's sake, I'll be going through each of these tapes and pointing out anything I find strange or interesting, as well as any of the defunct attractions I see. I'll be tallying up each film's number of closed attractions, and at the end, I'll show the total, as well as determine which film had the most. With that said, let's head over to the Magic Kingdom. We start our trip at the Ticket and Transportation Center, where we board the monorail to the Magic Kingdom. This is really just a framing device to show us a bunch of Walt Disney World's amenities. It starts out pretty conventionally by showing a few of the resorts, but then they drop this bombshell on us.
There's Discovery Island, home to all kinds of wild animals. And that old swimming hole is River Country.
That's right, two of the most infamous closed amenities in Disney Parks history are just nonchalantly mentioned back to back like that. For those of you who don't know, River Country was Walt Disney World's first water park and opened in 1976. It closed in 2001, and for a while, rumors floated around that it closed due to deadly bacteria in the water. The park actually closed due to its low capacity and low popularity after Disney opened Typhoon Lagoon in 1989 and Blizzard Beach in 1995. The other attraction mentioned is Discovery Island, one of the most interesting closed attractions at Walt Disney World, with a long and complicated history that I can't fully explain in this video. To cut a long story short, Discovery Island was a zoological park at Disney World that was on an island in the middle of Bay Lake. It opened in 1974 and closed in 1999 after the opening of Animal Kingdom rendered it obsolete. After it closed, it was left abandoned and became the subject of many urban legends, as well as a target for many urban explorers. Okay, back to the VHS tape now. We enter Magic Kingdom and are introduced to the family we'll be following through the park today. We're also introduced to the most annoying effect in all of these tapes. Anytime something is supposed to be being recorded on a video camera, they add a really annoying border around the shot, meant to represent the camera screen. After spending an oddly long amount of time on Main Street, USA, and admiring Cinderella's castle, they make their way into Fantasyland. They start out by riding some time-proven classic attractions that still remain to this day: the Carousel, Dumbo, and It's a Small World. Then they have a little meet and greet with Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. And in the background, you can see the facade of Snow White's Scary Adventures, which opened with the park in 1971 and closed in 2012 to make way for a new Snow White ride, in the form of Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. The next big defunct attraction is 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, which is one of the most beloved Disney attractions of all time. It opened shortly after the park in October of 1971, and sadly closed in September of 1994 due to high maintenance costs and the financial instability of the company after the opening of Disneyland Paris. The family then rides Peter Pan's Flight, and afterwards, the mom and daughter are at the Mad Hatter hat store looking at mouse ears, and there's a very cheesy fade-in where the scene transitions from the mom spinning the ears in her hand to the family riding the teacups. The family then spends some time goofing off in Mickey's Toontown Fair, an entire area of the park that closed in 2011 and was replaced by Storybook Circus in the new Fantasyland update. An interesting side note to Toontown is that in the petting zoo, they show Minnie Moo, a cow with a Mickey-shaped pattern on her that was sold to the Walt Disney Company in 1990. Once they finish up in Toontown, they transition to riding the Tomorrowland Speedway with a very jarring cut. They then show the 20 seconds of Space Mountain where you can actually see anything before riding the Starjets, which brings me to the most interesting thing about Tomorrowland in this video. This VHS tape was released in 1991, and the look and feel of modern Tomorrowland was introduced in the 1994 New Tomorrowland update. So this video gives us a good look at the land as it would have been in the late 70s, following the opening of Space Mountain, the People Mover, the Starjets, and the Carousel of Progress at the Magic Kingdom. All of these attractions first opened between 1974 and 1975, when Walt Disney World was first proving to be a success with guests. In the new Tomorrowland update, all of these attractions received updates, and the land as a whole changed its aesthetic from the sterile white space race era design of the original Tomorrowland to a more sci-fi inspired vision of the future as it was seen in the past, reminiscent of Disneyland Paris's Discoveryland. We see another defunct attraction when they ride the People Mover, as you can see Delta Dream Flight down on the ground. The family then exits Tomorrowland on the Skyway, which closed in 1999. However, it's kind of making a comeback, with the Skyliner gondolas that opened in September of 2019. The family then heads over to Liberty Square, where they ride the Haunted Mansion and watch the Hall of Presidents, before heading over to Frontierland. In this land, the only defunct attraction is the Mike Finch Keelboats, which closed in 2001. After riding that glorious vessel, the family sits down and watches the Country Bear Jamboree, before magically teleporting back to Main Street, where they watch Surprise Celebration at the Magic Kingdom, the special 20th anniversary parade that ran until 1994. When the parade ends, they hop on Big Thunder Mountain, where they have some genuinely cool point-of-view footage that's ruined by that stupid camcorder effect. The family then spends some time on Tom Sawyer Island and rides Splash Mountain before heading over to Adventureland. Once there, they start off by showing Pirates of the Caribbean, which, as the film had not been made yet, had not a single ounce of Johnny Depp in it. Another interesting thing they show in Adventureland is the Barker Birds for both the Tiki Room and Pirates of the Caribbean. We then come to my favorite scene in the whole video, where the son is just waving a rubber snake in the camera and the dad is filming it. I like to think that most of the vacation footage is just the kid waving the snake at the camera. After that masterpiece of a scene, they hop on the Jungle Cruise. And I know the skippers are meant to be goofy and make jokes, but he straight up lies to them.
Well, welcome aboard, crew. I'll be your skipper, alligator wrestler, and swimming instructor on a cruise that could only happen here in the Magic Kingdom.
The Jungle Cruise was an opening day attraction at Disneyland in 1955, for crying out loud. It wasn't even original to the Magic Kingdom. Not to mention, it opened at Tokyo Disneyland 8 years before this was filmed. After the sun goes down, the family heads back to Main Street to watch Spectro Magic and the fireworks show. As the fireworks go off over Cinderella Castle, the narrator delivers a genuinely heartfelt message to the audience.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you for spending your day at the Magic Kingdom. It was Walt Disney's vision to create a place where dreams, imagination, and happiness would come together for all. We hope Walt Disney World has brought joy and inspiration and new knowledge to all who have come to this happy place, where the young at heart of all ages can laugh, play, and learn together.
I'm not gonna lie, that sentiment is really sweet, and it really shows that a lot of care was put into this video, even though it's essentially just an advertisement for a theme park. Well, that wraps up our journey at the Magic Kingdom. Now it's time to head over to Epcot Center.
Who do you think the hottest girl in school is? The Epcot ball? Well, I like Melanie, and not just because she's pretty. I think she's really funny and all.
Well, here we are at Walt Disney World's second gate, Epcot Center, or as you may know it, Epcot. When the park first opened, it was called Epcot Center, to represent its place as a center of Walt Disney's proposed experimental prototype community of tomorrow. As the years passed and it drifted away from that theming, its name changed to Epcot followed by the year, leading to Epcot 94 and Epcot 95. However, changing the name every year got annoying, so they stuck with just Epcot. The video once again starts with the narrator, but this time, instead of telling us about the resorts, he's explaining the background of Epcot Center, and how it's laid out. Something I've covered before, but I'll give a little recap here. Walt Disney World was originally planned to include the experimental prototype community of tomorrow, a combination of futuristic housing and the World's Fair. There would be a testing ground for new technology, as well as be a tourist attraction with plenty of shops and an East Coast version of Disneyland. The theme park would be the first stage, and the actual city of Epcot would be Phase 2. Unfortunately, Walt passed away before construction had begun on Magic Kingdom, and it was determined that the Epcot project would be impossible without Walt. Then, in the late 70s, after Walt Disney World had proven successful, development began on a second gate. The Imagineers decided to theme this second park after one of the main concepts of this unbuilt city, the idea of a permanent World's Fair. This theme park would be called Epcot Center and contain two distinct lands. Future World, a land with several pavilions themed to different concepts of science, and World Showcase, a land with several pavilions themed to different countries from around the world. After receiving that history lesson and entering through the main gate, we get introduced to another family that we'll be following, but they have much less of a role this time. Unfortunately, what there isn't any less of is shots using that cursed camera filter! Anyway, we hop onto Spaceship Earth, which, since they don't show the ending or play the narration, seems pretty close to the modern version. The family then pops over to Communicore, an interactive showcase of digital technology that closed in 1994 to make way for Innoventions. The gang then embarks on a voyage to the Living Seas, a massive aquarium that was the largest saltwater tank in the world up until 2005 with the opening of the Georgia Aquarium. Also in 2005, the pavilion closed, and it reopened as The Seas with Nemo and Friends in 2007. This retheme completely removed the hydrolators, themed elevators that gave the effect of going down to the seafloor, and took guests down to the main viewing room for the aquarium. It also rethemed the Sea Base Alpha Sea Cab ride into a Finding Nemo-themed Clammobile ride. The next destination to sprout up is the Land Pavilion. There, the narrator mentions Symbiosis, an environmental film focused on the balance between technical advancement and the natural world, that closed in 1995. We then get on Listen to the Land, a combination dark ride and greenhouse tour where we can see many different habitats, as well as the greenhouse where most of the agricultural products used at Walt Disney World are grown. While its name was changed to Living with the Land in 1993, and the live cast member was replaced with a voiceover by Mark Brassel, I would still consider it to be the same experience, and one of my personal favorite attractions. Next up, we join in on a viewing of Kitchen Cabaret, a nutrition-themed animatronic stage show based on the food groups that sadly closed in 1994. The next pavilion we happen to dream up is the Imagination Pavilion. Here, we ride Journey into Imagination, another one of the most beloved defunct attractions of all time, that closed in 1998 to be replaced by a more inferior version of itself due to a lack of support from its sponsor, Kodak. Once they get off the ride, the group ends up in Imageworks, another interactive digital playground that closed in its original form in 1998. We then transport ourselves over to the Transportation Pavilion, where we ride World of Motion, a dark ride similar to Spaceship Earth, focused on the evolution of transportation that closed in 1996 to make way for Test Track. Next up, we broaden our horizons and head over to the Horizons Pavilion. This is another one of the legendary defunct attractions of Walt Disney World, and it was an amazing look at the future as it was predicted in the past, and how it was predicted at the time. But sadly, it closed in 1999, due to a sinkhole forming under the building and General Electric dropping out as a sponsor. To follow that up, we have a prescription for one visit to the Wonders of Life Pavilion. Here we get another interactive playground, this time themed to exercise and your body as a whole. We then make our way into Body Wars, a Star Tours-esque simulator ride that shrinks us down and puts us into a human body. Last up in this pavilion, we view Cranium Command, a stage show following our animatronic friend Buzzy as he controls the brain of a teenage boy. Unfortunately, the entire Wonders of Life Pavilion closed in 2007 due to a general lack of interest from guests. Our next and final Future World Pavilion is the Universe of Energy, a combination dark ride and film that talked about the history of and advancements in energy production that closed in 1996 to be replaced by Ellen's Energy Adventure, an updated version of the same attraction hosted by Ellen DeGeneres. We're then treated to Epcot's Surprise in the Sky, a combination water stunts and fireworks show that performed on World Showcase Lagoon to celebrate Walt Disney World's 20th anniversary and ran until 1992. We then decide to ditch the family we've been following up to this point and head on over to World Showcase, where we follow an elderly couple through all the countries. I'm gonna be honest with you. The second half of the video is pretty dull. They mostly just show off the different shops and restaurants available in each country, but there are a few interesting things to point out. One of these things is the themed characters seen throughout World Showcase, such as Chinese Chip and Dale, Mexican Donald Duck, and the elusive Arabian Tigger. The only other things of note in World Showcase are Norway and Mexico, because they house the only rides in World Showcase. In Norway, we see the Maelstrom, the original ride of the Norway Pavilion, that took guests on a journey through Troll Country that lasted until 2014, when it closed to make way for Frozen Ever After. In Mexico, we see El Rio del Tiempo, the River of Time, which was a boat ride that told the stories of Mexico's past. It still somewhat exists today, but in 2007, it closed and was reworked into Grand Fiesta Tour, starring the Three Caballeros, which changed what was on the screens, but kept the same layout as the original. After a quick trip to the American Adventure, we sit and watch Illuminations, which just recently closed in September. After the show, the video ends with yet another nice sentiment.
Walt Disney designed Epcot Center in the belief that people could solve problems if equipped with information, technology, and opportunity. From all of us here at Walt Disney World, we hope you enjoyed your day at Epcot Center.
Well, this brings us to the end of the original 20th anniversary duology of tapes, which means we only have one tape left, A Day at the Disney Studios. Here we are at our last tape, A Day at the Disney Studios. But before we get into the video itself, something has to be said about the title. When the park opened in 1989, it was called Disney's MGM Studios, as a deal had been made between the two companies in 1985 that allowed for the usage of MGM's branding and properties throughout the park. However, in 1988, MGM filed suit against Disney for the use of the park as a functional production studio, as they argued it breached the terms of the contract. This suit was settled in 1992, and it was agreed that Disney could continue producing films and shows at the park using the MGM branding. That being said, they were still weary of openly using that branding in film by 1995, as shown by this tape. Throughout it, they avoid all mentions of MGM like the plague, and thus they titled the film accordingly. With that bit of exposition out of the way, let's get into the video proper. This video starts pretty similarly to a day at the Magic Kingdom, with us riding a friendship boat to the park, and passing many resorts on our way there, while a narrator explains to us what all of them are. The most interesting thing mentioned is Epcot, which is referred to as Epcot 95.
Up ahead are the Walt Disney World Swan and Dolphin Resorts. Both of these resorts are within walking distance of Epcot 95 and the Disney Studios.
When we get to the main gate, some of you might notice some weird visual artifacts on the entrance sign. These are the side effects of a sloppy masking job to hide the MGM part of the logo. Like I said, they really avoided the MGM branding. Here at the entrance, the narrator announces the arrival of the Fab Four to the park.
Wait a second, I see the limousine door just about to open. Is it? Yes, it is. It's Mickey Mouse.
Oh, gee, hiya, folks.
And with Mickey, you'll usually find, yes, it is. It's Minnie Mouse. She's dressed in a magnificent red dress that makes her look as stunning as ever. Fans are going crazy.
Mr. Narrator, did you just hit on Minnie Mouse? Come on, dude. We have standards. Daisy is obviously better. Anyway, the narrator explains that the characters are here to spend a day at the park, and that's what really makes the difference between this tape and the others. Instead of following a family of guests around, we are touring the park alongside the Fab Four and being guided by a cast of wacky Hollywood stereotype characters. The first of these characters we meet is Slick Nick McDaniels, a talent agent who's trying to help us make it to the big time and star in a movie. He takes us over to a few stores, including the antique store where we meet Sid Cahuenga, who tucks like a mix between a used car dealer and a 1920s radio newscaster.
Well, good morning, I shall tell you this morning, I'm Sid Cahuenga. This is Sid Cahuenga's one of a kind, truly collectible. Yes, indeed. I assume that you're movie buff, you know?
Yeah, that old Sid knows everyone in this town. Over the years, he's grabbed all kinds of Hollywood memorabilia that you can get your hands on in his store.
The only other interesting store shown is the Cover Story, where you used to be able to get real headshots taken, but is now just a place that deals with PhotoPass pictures.
Okay, guys, you got your headshot done and you look absolutely perfect.
Aww, thank you. Next, we head over to the Chinese theater to meet up with the director, who's shooting a movie. After watching him harass a random girl, we go inside, where we see the other defining feature of this video, scenes where costumed characters watch and ride each attraction. We watch Mickey and Minnie ride the Great Movie Ride, the attraction that once represented the spirit of Hollywood studios, and its focus on the art of film and filmmaking. Unfortunately, as the park drifted away from that theme, it also drifted away from this amazing attraction, which led to its untimely closure in 2017. Next up, we view Superstar Television, a show that looked into the behind-the-scenes aspects of the television industry and closed in 1998. We then go see The Monster Sound Show, a show where audience members would use various objects to create the sound effects of a horror movie in real time, that closed in 1999. Next, we finally get to see an attraction that's still around when we join Goofy to watch the Indiana Jones stunt show. That's directly followed up by Star Tours, which some people may argue is still around, but I beg to differ, as it completely changed its film, animatronics, and theming in 2011 when it became Star Tours The Adventure Continues, which is a prequel to the original attraction and the current version of the ride. Next up, we watch Muppet Vision 3D, before heading over to the Honey I Shrunk the Kids Playground, a play area themed to the 1989 film that closed in 2016. Then, after a slight change on the food offerings, we ride the Studio Backlot Tour with Chip and Dale. The Backlot Tour was another one of the attractions that cemented the theme of filmmaking at MGM Studios, that provided guests with both a long ride to rest on and an interesting showcase of practical set effects, old film props, and, when filming was taking place, the production of television shows and movies. As with Great Movie Ride, it closed after Hollywood Studios started to move away from its original themes to focus on new projects, and it ceased operation in 2014 to make room for Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. Once we hop off the Backlot Tour, we check out the magic of Disney animation, where guests could view animators work on animating new projects and learn about the process of traditional hand-drawn animation. The animation studio aspect closed in 2004, while the show itself closed in 2015. Next up, we watch Voyage of the Little Mermaid, which has remained practically unchanged since it opened. We then run into another set of wacky characters in the form of two street cops who just roast a group of tourists over their fashion choices.
Hey, look at this girl up front. She's wearing black socks. Everybody knows you should wear white socks on vacation.
Disc.
Hey, look at the kids next to her. Zebra shoes. Everybody knows no pets allowed.
After that encounter, we watched the Beauty and the Beast stage show, which has also remained practically unchanged since it premiered. The last attraction shown is the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror, which we get to see in another great character skit starring Donald and Daisy.
Donald Duck, that is the last time I ever trust you. Oh! Come on, let's do it again. Again? Look at...
The tape ends with a fireworks show in front of the Chinese theater, as Fantasmic wouldn't premiere for another 3 years. With the last tape over, it's time to tally up all the defunct attractions and crown our winner. Drum roll, please. And the winner for most defunct attractions shown in a Walt Disney World promotional VHS tape from the 90s goes to... A Day at Epcot Center. With half of Epcot being dedicated to the future, it makes sense that it would keep updating its attractions to keep up with advancing technology. That, tied with the instability of the sponsor model, led Epcot to have an extremely large number of defunct attractions. In fact, Epcot's defunct attractions made up almost half of the 33 total shown throughout all 3 tapes. Of these 33, Epcot had 16, Magic Kingdom had 10, and MGM Studios had 7. Well, that brings us to the end of this video focusing on the A Day At series, a strange set of VHS tapes that had a novel concept that couldn't really be fully explored until many years after they were outdated. Nonetheless, they still deserve credit for pioneering a form of entertainment that seems quite commonplace today. They still provide a good bit of entertainment if you're feeling nostalgic for a simpler time at Walt Disney World, or if you just want to laugh at some cheesy 90s humor. I personally am happy to have them as part of my theme park collection. It's a time capsule of Walt Disney World in one of its most interesting eras. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.